The morning sky over Seoul turned dark as massive ships blotted out the sun. Kim Tae-ho was drinking coffee on his apartment balcony when the first alien vessel appeared through the clouds. It was huge, bigger than any building he had ever seen. The metal surface gleamed like polished silver, and strange lights pulsed along its edges. Within hours, more ships arrived. They hung in the air above every major city on Earth. News broadcasts showed the same scene everywhere: London, New York, Tokyo, Mumbai. Giant alien ships floating silently above humanity's greatest achievements. Tae-ho had served 20 years in the South Korean military. He knew the look of an invasion when he saw one. But these ships did not attack. They just waited. The silence was worse than any explosion. On the third day, they made contact. The message came through every television, radio, and phone on the planet at the same time. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking in perfect Korean, English, Chinese, and every other human language. People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Galactic Council. Your planet has been claimed. Your species has been classified as Class D servitors. You will follow all instructions given by Council representatives. Resistance will result in immediate termination. The words hit Tae-ho like a physical blow. Servitors. They were calling humans servants. Slaves. Park So-min was working late in her laboratory when the announcement came. She was one of South Korea's best scientists, always, dreaming of the day humans would travel to the stars. Now the stars had come to them and they brought chains. The aliens did not waste time. Within a week, their forces had landed in every major city. They looked different from each other. Some were tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal. Others floated in the air like clouds of gas held together by metal shells. There were creatures that looked like giant insects, and others covered in thick armor. But they all treated humans the same way. Like animals. Lee Dong-wook had been a diplomat before the invasion. Now he found himself dragged from his home and brought before a creature that called itself a council overseer. The thing was 12 feet tall, made of blue crystal that rang, like bells when it moved. You will be our voice to your species, it said in a voice like breaking glass. You will tell them to obey. You will make them understand their new place. Dong-wook wanted to refuse. He wanted to spit in the creature's face, but he saw the bodies of those who had already tried to resist. Human bodies, burned and broken, left as examples for others to see. I understand, he said quietly. The aliens moved fast. They built huge processing centers in every city. Humans were sorted into groups based on their skills. The strong ones went to work in mines and factories. The smart ones were sent to research facilities. The pretty ones disappeared into buildings that no human was allowed to enter. Tae-ho watched his neighbors being loaded into trucks like cattle. His wife and daughter were selected for something called genetic optimization. He tried to stop them from taking his family, but alien guards hit him with weapons that sent lightning through his body. He could only watch as the truck drove away. That night, alone in his empty apartment, Tae-ho made a decision. He would not accept this. He would not let humanity become slaves to these creatures from the stars. He began reaching out to others, old military friends, police officers, anyone who still had fight left in them. They met in secret in sewers and abandoned buildings. They called themselves the Resistance. Meanwhile, So-min found herself working in an alien research facility. The creatures wanted humans to help them understand Earth's resources. They gave her access to alien technology, thinking she was too scared to do anything but obey. They were wrong. Every day So-min studied their machines. She memorized their designs. She learned how their computers worked. The aliens thought humans were simple creatures, unable to understand advanced technology. They did not bother to hide their secrets from her. Dong-wook played his role as the human spokesman. He appeared on television, reading alien messages that told humans to be grateful for their new lives. He smiled and nodded while his heart burned with hatred, but he was also listening. In the alien command centers, he heard them talking about their plans. He learned about their weaknesses. He discovered which species in the Galactic Council hated each other And which ones were afraid? The aliens thought they had won easily. Earth had fallen in days. No other planet had ever resisted the Council for more than a few months. They expected humans to break quickly and accept their fate. They had made their first mistake. Humans were not like other species. When pressed down, they did not break. They bent, and then they sprang back harder than before. The aliens had conquered Earth, but they had not conquered the human spirit. In hidden basements across the world, small groups gathered. They shared information. They made plans. They prepared weapons. Taeho's group in Seoul contacted similar groups in every major city. So-min passed along everything she learned about alien technology. Dongwook fed them intelligence from inside the alien command structure. The resistance grew slowly but steadily. Workers in the alien factories began making small mistakes that caused big problems. Scientists in the research centers started providing wrong information. Even the humans working directly with alien overseers found ways to cause trouble. The aliens noticed the problems, but did not understand them. They thought humans were just naturally clumsy and stupid. They increased the punishments for mistakes, but this only made humans more angry and more clever about hiding their sabotage. 3 months after the invasion, Taeho stood in a hidden room beneath Seoul, looking at a map covered in red marks. Each mark represented a resistance cell. There were hundreds of them now, spread across every continent. "They think they have chained us," he told the dozen men and women gathered around the table. "They think we are their property. But chains can be broken, and when we break free, they will learn what it means to underestimate humanity." Outside, alien ships continued to patrol the skies. In the processing centers, humans continued to work and suffer, but in the darkness beneath their feet something was growing. Something the aliens had never encountered before. Hope, anger, and the unbreakable human will to be free. The galaxy had seen many species rise and fall, but it had never seen anything like humanity. The aliens thought they had won the war by winning the first battle. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 years had passed since the ships first darkened Earth's skies. The aliens believed they had broken humanity's spirit. They saw humans working in their minds, following their orders, speaking respectfully to their overseers. What they did not see was the network of resistance growing beneath their feet. Choi Min-ho had been a successful businessman before the invasion. Now he worked in an alien communications facility, pretending to be a simple technician. The creatures trusted him to maintain their equipment because humans were supposedly too primitive to understand it. They were wrong. Min-ho had spent 3 years learning every detail of their technology. During his lunch breaks, he made small modifications to their systems. Tiny changes that the aliens never noticed, but which allowed him to intercept their messages and redirect them to hidden receivers across the city. Every night, he returned to his small apartment and typed coded messages on an old computer hidden beneath his floorboards. These messages went out through a secret network he had built, connecting resistance cells in dozens of countries. The aliens thought they controlled all communications on Earth. They had no idea that humans were talking to each other right under their noses. Yoon Hae-jin had been a doctor before the invasion. Now she worked in the medical facilities where humans were processed for enhancement. She watched as her own people were turned into modified creatures designed for specific tasks. Some had their muscles changed to make them stronger. Others had their brains altered to make them more obedient. But Hae-jin did more than just watch. She memorized every procedure. She learned which modifications could be reversed and which ones were permanent. She developed treatments that could help the enhanced humans remember who they used to be. And when the aliens were not looking, she taught other doctors how to secretly undo some of the worst changes. More importantly, she had begun mapping the alien facilities. She knew where they kept their medical supplies, where they stored their weapons, and where their guards were stationed. Every piece of information went into reports that she passed to the resistance through Min-ho's network. Bae Young-sik had been chosen for a different role. The aliens had selected him to be a liaison between human workers and their overseers. They thought he was grateful for the privilege. They saw him bow and smile and thank them for their kindness. But Young Sik was acting. He had learned to tell the aliens exactly what they wanted to hear, while his real thoughts remained hidden. In the 3 years since his selection, he had gained access to high-level meetings where alien commanders discussed their plans. He sat quietly in the corner, pretending to take notes about worker schedules while actually recording everything they said. Through Young Sik, the Resistance learned something that changed everything. The Galactic Council was afraid, not of humanity. They still saw humans as primitive animals, but they were terrified of something called the Void Touched. Long ago, the Council had tried to enslave a species from the edge of the galaxy. That species had seemed weak and simple, much like humans. But instead of breaking under the Council's control, they had learned to use their enslavement as a weapon. They turned their own modifications into advantages. They used their positions as slaves to get close to their masters. And then, when the time was right, they struck. The Void Touched had not just defeated their enslavers, they had consumed them completely, absorbing their technology and their knowledge. Then they had disappeared back into the darkness at the edge of known space, leaving behind only empty worlds and the terrifying knowledge that slaves could become predators. Young Sik passed this information to the Resistance, and it spread through the hidden network like wildfire. If one enslaved species could defeat the mighty Galactic Council, then maybe humanity could too. Park So-min had spent 3 years in the alien research facilities, and she had made the breakthrough they had all been waiting for. The aliens had forced her to study their quantum communication systems, never imagining that she was actually learning to copy them. Working with components stolen from a dozen different facilities, she had built humanity's first quantum communicator. It was crude compared to the alien devices, but it worked. For the first time since the invasion, humans could send messages instantly across the planet without the aliens being able to intercept them. The first message So-min sent was to Kim Tae-ho, the Resistance leader in Seoul. It was simple: ready to strike. Tae-ho had used the 3 years well. The aliens thought he was a broken man, working quietly in a mining facility and causing no trouble. But every night, he met with other Resistance members in hidden bunkers beneath the city. They had been preparing for this moment. The Resistance had learned to think like the aliens. The Council species were used to direct confrontation. They understood armies and battles and formal surrenders. What they did not understand was guerrilla warfare. They had never faced an enemy that could hide among civilians, strike without warning, and disappear before retaliation could come. Tae-ho's plan was simple but devastating. On a single day, at exactly the same time, Resistance cells across the world would strike at alien administrative centers. Not the heavily guarded military bases, but the smaller facilities where the aliens processed information and gave orders to human workers. The aliens had made these centers easy targets by using human labor to build and maintain them. They never suspected that the humans working inside were actually Resistance members, gathering intelligence and preparing for an attack. When the day came, the strikes were perfectly coordinated. In Seoul, Tae-ho's team used stolen alien weapons to destroy a communication hub. In London, Resistance members set off explosives in a processing center. In New York, hackers used So-min's quantum communicator to overload an alien computer system. Across 6 continents, in dozens of cities, alien facilities erupted in flames or went dark. The strikes happened so quickly and so simultaneously that the aliens had no time to respond. In less than an hour, humanity had crippled the Council's ability to coordinate their operations on Earth. But the real shock came when the aliens tried to retaliate. They expected to find scattered groups of primitive humans with crude weapons. Instead, they found organized military units using stolen alien technology with devastating effectiveness. Jin had trained Resistance medics who could treat alien weapons wounds. Minho had created communication networks that let Resistance cells coordinate their movements. Young Sik had provided detailed maps of alien facilities and guard rotations. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy they did not understand. Humans who appeared to be simple workers during the day became deadly guerrilla fighters at night. Facilities that seemed secure were revealed to be full of resistance sympathizers. Even the humans who appeared most loyal, like Young Sik, turned out to be enemies. For the first time since the invasion, alien commanders began to worry. They sent urgent messages to the Galactic Council, reporting that the Class D servitors were showing unexpected resistance. They requested immediate reinforcements and authorization to use more extreme measures. The Council's response was swift and brutal. If the humans wanted to fight, they would learn what happened to species that defied the galactic order. They dispatched their most feared military force, the Sauridian hegemony, a species of reptilian warriors who specialized in crushing rebellions. But as the alien reinforcements traveled toward Earth, Teho stood in a hidden command center, beneath Sol, looking at reports from resistance cells around the world. The first strike had been even more successful than they had hoped. Alien operations were disrupted everywhere. Human morale was higher than it had been since the invasion. "They think this was our best effort," he told the gathered resistance leaders. "They think we have shown them everything we can do. But this was just the beginning. We spent 3 years learning to be slaves. Now we will show them what we learned about being warriors." The aliens had made their second mistake. They thought the successful rebellion was evidence of human desperation, a final, doomed effort by a broken species. They did not realize it was actually proof of human patience and planning. Humanity had been preparing for this war since the day the first alien ship appeared in Earth's sky. Now the real fight was about to begin. The Sauridian warships arrived like thunder from the stars. Each vessel was the size of a city, covered in weapons that could turn mountains to glass. The reptilian warriors inside had crushed rebellions on 100 worlds. They came to Earth, expecting another easy victory. They found something they had never encountered before. Kang Ji-won had been an aerospace engineer before the invasion. For 3 years she had worked in alien manufacturing facilities, pretending to help build their equipment while secretly studying every component. Now she stood in a hidden workshop beneath the ruins of Busan, surrounded by weapons that should not have existed. The devices on her workbench looked wrong. They combined alien technology with human design in ways that made no sense to conventional thinking. Crystal power cores were connected to Earth-made computers. Alien metal was shaped using human manufacturing techniques. Energy weapons were modified with parts taken from old Earth satellites. "The aliens think in straight lines," Ji-won explained to her team. "Their weapons do exactly what they were designed to do. But our weapons adapt. They learn. They change." She picked up what looked like a simple rifle, but its barrel was made from alien crystal and its trigger was connected to a quantum processor. When this fires at an alien shield, it analyzes the shield's frequency and adjusts. By the third shot, the shield becomes useless. Her workshop was one of hundreds hidden across Earth. In every major city, human engineers were building impossible weapons using stolen alien technology. The aliens had given humans access to advanced materials and tools, never imagining they could be turned into instruments of war. Lim Soo-jin had been a psychology professor before the invasion. Now she worked in the most dangerous battlefield of all, the minds of both humans and aliens. Her weapons were ideas, and she was about to use them to tear the Galactic Council apart from within. Soo-jin had spent 3 years studying alien behavior patterns. She learned that different species in the Council hated and feared each other. The crystal beings looked down on the gas creatures. The insect-like species despised the reptilians. They stayed united only because they all profited from enslaving weaker races. But Soo-jin had discovered something that could shatter that unity forever. Hidden in the deepest alien archives, she had found records of the Council's own history. The great species that ruled the galaxy had not always been rulers. Millions of years ago, they had been slaves themselves, serving an even more powerful race called the Architects. The Architects had created the galactic civilization that the Council now controlled. They had built the wormhole networks that connected star systems. They had established the laws that governed interstellar trade. And then, mysteriously, they had vanished, leaving only ruins and monuments scattered across a galaxy. Soo-jin realized the truth that the Council had hidden for millions of years. The architects had not vanished. They had been murdered by their own slaves. The species that now ruled the galaxy had once been exactly like humanity, conquered, enslaved, and desperate for freedom. They had succeeded in overthrowing their masters, and then they had become masters themselves, enslaving others to forget their own shameful past. Using Minho's communication network, Sujin began broadcasting this revelation to every enslaved species in the galaxy. The messages went out in hundreds of languages, reaching billions of oppressed beings across thousands of worlds. The reaction was immediate and devastating. On the Vorthak crystal worlds, slave species began demanding to know why their masters had hidden the truth. In the Nebulon gas clouds, worker drones started asking uncomfortable questions about the Council's right to rule. Across the galaxy, the foundation of alien authority began to crack. Oh Hyunwoo had been a teacher before the invasion. Now he stood before the largest gathering of humans since the conquest began. Resistance leaders from every continent had come to this hidden bunker in the mountains of South Korea. For the first time since the ships arrived, humanity was truly united. The aliens made a mistake, Hyunwoo said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast underground chamber. They thought our differences made us weak. They saw different countries, different languages, different beliefs, and they thought we would fight each other instead of fighting them. He gestured to the crowd. Africans and Europeans, Americans and Asians, people of every race and culture that Earth had produced. But they did not understand that our differences are our strength. Every culture on Earth has something to teach about warfare. Every nation has contributed to our resistance. We are not just fighting as Koreans or Americans or Chinese. We are fighting as humans. The Sauridian assault began with orbital bombardment of the major cities where the resistance had struck. But when their targeting systems locked onto the coordinates, they found nothing but empty buildings. The humans had evacuated every target hours before the attack began. Young Six intelligence network had given them advance warning of the alien battle plans. Jiwon's adapted weapons could shoot down alien missiles before they reached their targets. Sujin's psychological warfare had caused chaos in alien command structures, as different species began to distrust each other. But the real surprise came when the Sauridian ground forces landed. The reptilian warriors were 8 feet tall, covered in armor that could stop tank shells. They carried weapons that fired concentrated plasma hot enough to melt steel. They had conquered planets by marching straight at their enemies and crushing any resistance through sheer firepower. They had never fought humans before. The battle for Seoul became a lesson in the difference between strength and intelligence. The Sauridians were stronger, tougher, and better armed than any human. But they fought like they always fought, in straight lines, following predictable tactics, expecting their enemies to meet them head-on. Humans did not fight that way. Taeho's forces struck from sewers and rooftops. They used the city itself as a weapon, collapsing buildings to block alien advances and flooding subway tunnels to create barriers. When Sauridian units tried to corner them, humans disappeared into the urban maze they knew better than any alien ever could. Jiwon's adapted weapons proved devastating against alien technology designed to face conventional attacks. Sauridian armor was built to stop plasma and lasers, but it had no defense against weapons that analyzed their defenses and changed tactics in real time. Most importantly, humans fought as a coordinated whole while the aliens fought as separate units that barely communicated with each other. Sujin's psychological warfare had poisoned the trust between different alien species. Sauridian commanders found themselves receiving contradictory orders from crystal and gas-based overseers who no longer trusted each other. The battle lasted for 3 days. When it ended, half of Seoul lay in ruins, but the Sauridian force was completely destroyed. For the first time in galactic history, the Council's most feared warriors had been defeated by a supposedly primitive species. But the real victory came when So-Min intercepted alien communications reporting the battle's outcome. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Some species wanted to exterminate humanity immediately. Others wanted to negotiate. A few were beginning to wonder if they should switch sides. Most importantly, enslaved species across the galaxy were watching. If humans could defeat the Sauridians, maybe they could defeat their own oppressors too. Rebellions began erupting on dozens of worlds as Sujin's revelations spread, and humanity's victory inspired others to fight. Hyun-woo stood in the ruins of Seoul's city center, watching human engineers work alongside liberated aliens to clear the rubble. The beings that had once been slaves in alien facilities were now allies, sharing their knowledge and skills freely with their human liberators. "This is just the beginning," he told the gathered crowd. "We have shown the galaxy that the Council can be defeated, but we have also shown them something more important. We have shown them what it looks like when different peoples work together as equals." In orbit above Earth, more alien ships were arriving. But now they were not all Council vessels. Some belonged to species that had broken free from their alien overlords inspired by humanity's example. Others were refugees fleeing worlds where the old order was collapsing. The galaxy was changing. The unbreakable authority of the Galactic Council was fracturing. And at the center of it all, the small blue planet that had been dismissed as insignificant was becoming the symbol of a new age. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to add another servitor species to their collection. Instead, they had awakened something that would transform the entire galaxy. The age of the Council was ending. The age of freedom was about to begin. The first human starship was ugly by any reasonable standard. CO Jaemin stood on its bridge, looking out at the strange hybrid of alien and human technology that surrounded him. The hull was made from ceridian armor plating, welded together, using Earth manufacturing techniques. The weapons were salvaged from a dozen different alien species, all connected to human-built targeting systems that made them deadlier than their original designers had ever imagined. "It may not be pretty," Jaemin said to his crew, "but it is ours." The ship was one of 50 that humanity had built using captured alien technology and salvaged materials. Each vessel was different, designed by human engineers who refused to follow alien blueprints. Where alien ships were built for single purposes, human ships were adaptable. Where alien vessels followed rigid design principles, human craft were creative chaos that somehow worked. Jaemin had been an admiral in the South Korean Navy before the invasion. Now he commanded humanity's first interstellar fleet. His mission was simple in concept but revolutionary in execution. Take the fight to the aliens' home territory. The Galactic Council had made their third mistake. They thought the battle for Earth was about Earth. They did not understand that humans saw it as the first battle in a much larger war. Han Boram had been a diplomat before the invasion, and now she was humanity's first ambassador to the stars. But her job was unlike any diplomatic mission in human history. She was not trying to make peace with enemies. She was trying to unite former enemies as allies. Boram's ship, the Harmony, carried no weapons. Instead, it was filled with translation, equipment, cultural exchange materials, and most importantly, proof of what the Galactic Council had hidden for millions of years. Her mission was to visit worlds where rebellions had started and help turn scattered uprisings into organized resistance. Her first stop was Ketha 7, a mining world where insect-like creatures called the Hexari had been enslaved for 3 centuries. The planet's surface was covered with deep mines where the Hexari dug up rare metals for their council masters. When Sujin's broadcasts reached them, they had started sabotaging the mining equipment. Now they needed help to turn their rebellion into revolution. Boram's team included former slaves from a dozen different worlds, aliens who had been liberated during humanity's uprising and chose to join the cause. When they landed on Ketha 7, they brought more than just weapons and supplies. They brought hope. "You are not alone," Boram told the Hexari leaders through her translation device. "Across the galaxy, millions of beings are fighting for the same freedom you seek. Together we are stronger than any of us could be alone." Meanwhile, Nam Seung-ho was proving that human creativity could be applied to warfare on an interstellar scale. He had been a military strategist before the invasion, but the Galactic Council's rigid thinking had given him opportunities no human general had ever dreamed of. Seung-ho had discovered that alien fleets followed predictable patterns based on mathematical calculations of force and distance. They positioned their ships where computer models said they would be most effective. They attacked targets in order of strategic importance. They retreated when damage exceeded acceptable parameters. Humans did not think that way. Shung-Ho's first major operation was an attack on the Vorthak Crystal Gardens, the most sacred sites of the species that led the Galactic Council. The gardens had no military value. They were not defended by major fleets. By all logical analysis, they were worthless targets. That was exactly why Shung-Ho attacked them. Using captured alien stealth technology improved with human innovations, his ships appeared without warning in the heart of Vorthak space. But instead of destroying the Crystal Gardens, they did something the aliens had never seen before. They kidnapped them. Human engineers had designed special transport fields that could move entire crystal formations without damaging them. Inside less than an hour, Shung-Ho's fleet had stolen the most precious religious sites of the Galactic Council's leadership and vanished back into hyperspace. The psychological impact was devastating. The Vorthak went into a religious panic, demanding that every available ship be sent to recover their sacred crystals. The Council was forced to pull fleets away from strategic positions to hunt for targets that might be anywhere in the galaxy. But Shung-Ho was not finished. His next target was even more audacious: the Council's central communication hub, a massive space station that coordinated alien military operations across 1,000 star systems. The station was heavily defended and positioned in the center of the most powerful alien fleet in the galaxy. A direct attack would be suicide, so Shung-Ho did not attack it directly. Instead, he sent signals to the station that appeared to come from different alien species, accusing each other of treason. The messages contained evidence, carefully crafted, by Sujin's psychological warfare team, that suggested various council species were planning to overthrow their allies. Within hours, the alien fleets around the communication hub were shooting at each other. By the time they realized they had been tricked, Shung-Ho's forces had already destroyed the station and escaped. The Council's ability to coordinate military operations across the galaxy was crippled. Jae-min's fleet was having similar success, using tactics that defied all alien understanding of warfare. When Council fleets moved to intercept them, the human ships split up and attacked a dozen different targets simultaneously. When alien commanders tried to predict their next move, humans changed plans in real time based on opportunities that no pre-battle calculation could have foreseen. Most confusing to the aliens was humanity's treatment of captured enemy ships. Instead of destroying them or taking them as prizes, humans gave them to liberated species. Former slave worlds suddenly found themselves with fleets of their own, all equipped with weapons and technology that had been used to oppress them. The galaxy was transforming faster than anyone had thought possible. Worlds that had been enslaved for centuries were suddenly free. Species that had never worked together were forming alliances. The rigid hierarchy that had kept the Galactic Council in power for millions of years was collapsing. But the Council still had one final weapon: planet killers. These were massive devices designed to destroy entire worlds. They had never been used because the Council preferred to keep enslaved planets intact for resource extraction. But faced with the total collapse of their authority, some council members began arguing that examples needed to be made. The debate raged in the crystal halls of the Vorthak homeworld. Some species wanted to negotiate with the humans. Others wanted to retreat to the galactic core and rebuild their strength. But the hardliners, led by the ancient Vorthak elders, demanded that Earth be destroyed as a lesson to other rebellious worlds. Young Sik, still pretending to be a loyal human servant, was present when the decision was made. The planet killer would be deployed within the week. Earth had days to live. But the Council had made their fourth and final mistake. They thought the war was still about Earth. When Jae-min received Young Sik's warning, he did not order the human fleet to return home to defend Earth. Instead, he sent a message to every liberated world, every rebel fleet, every species that had joined the growing alliance against the Council. They want to destroy our home, his message said. But home is not a place. Home is the people we protect and the values we fight for. Earth gave birth to the idea of freedom, but that idea now lives in all of us. If they destroy one world, we will liberate 100 more. The response was immediate. Fleets from dozens of species converged on the Vorthak homeworld, not to destroy it, but to capture the planet killer before it could be used. Boram's diplomatic mission had succeeded, beyond all expectations. The galaxy was no longer divided between the Council and its slaves. Now it was divided between those who believed in domination and those who believed in cooperation. The final battle was about to begin, and for the first time in galactic history, the oppressed outnumbered their oppressors. Xiong-Ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as hundreds of ships from dozens of different species moved in perfect coordination toward their target. Each fleet was different: crystal ships that sang as they flew, gas-based vessels that flowed like clouds, insectoid craft that moved in perfect swarms. But they all followed the same battle plan, worked toward the same goal. The Council taught the galaxy that different species cannot work together, he said to his officers. They built their power on that lie. Today, we prove them wrong. The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of the galaxy itself was about to begin. The great crystal halls of the Vorthak homeworld had never seen anything like this. Where once only the 12 species of the Galactic Council had gathered to divide the galaxy among themselves, now hundreds of different beings filled the ancient chambers. Former slaves sat beside their former masters. Species that had been enemies for millennia worked together on plans for a new future. Park Min-jung had been a philosophy professor before the invasion. Now she stood at the center of the vast hall, representing not just humanity but the principle that had started this revolution, that all intelligent beings deserve to be free. We are not here for revenge, she said, her words translated instantly into hundreds of languages. We are here to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. The surviving members of the old Galactic Council sat in special seats marked with energy fields. They were not prisoners exactly, but they were not free to leave either. Some looked defiant. Others seemed confused. A few appeared genuinely curious about what would happen next. The crystal being that had once ruled the Council, whose species had led the galaxy for 50,000 years, spoke first. Its voice still rang like breaking glass, but now it carried a note of uncertainty. You have won, it said. We acknowledge your victory. What are your terms for our surrender? Min-jung smiled sadly. You still do not understand? This was never about winning or losing. This was about changing how the galaxy thinks about power itself. Kim Dae-jung had been a systems analyst before the invasion. Now he was the architect of something that had never existed before. A truly democratic government spanning thousands of star systems. The mathematics alone were staggering. But Dae-jung had spent months working with the brightest minds from dozens of species to make it possible. The old council ruled by force, he